The storm over Willow Lake came without warning. At first, it was just a whisper of wind over the water. Then the clouds rolled in, dark, heavy, and fast. By the time the first crack of thunder echoed across the hills, the town had already lost power. Daniel Harris didn't mind. He liked storms. They made his small cabin feel alive, each rumble like a heartbeat in the walls. He was used to the quiet, too. After his wife, Claire, passed away, silence had become his constant companion. That night, though, the silence felt different. It wasn't peaceful. It was expectant, like the world was holding its breath. He lit a candle and sat by the window, watching the rain smear the glass. The lake beyond his porch shimmered under flashes of lightning, silver, endless, alive. Then between the thunderclaps, he thought he heard something else, a sound that didn't belong, a faint voice. He frowned and leaned closer to the window. The wind howled, but underneath it came a soft, drawn-out call. A woman's voice carried over the water. "Daniel." His blood ran cold. For a moment he couldn't move. That voice, he knew it. "Claire," he whispered. The voice came again, clearer this time, wrapped inside the thunder. "Daniel, come to me." He pushed his chair back, heart pounding. His mind scrambled for reason. Maybe it was the storm, the wind echoing off the cliffs across the lake. But deep down, something in him stirred, something that remembered the way Claire used to call his name in that same gentle tone. He grabbed his raincoat and flashlight and stepped out onto the porch. Rain lashed his face and thunder cracked like the sky was splitting in two. The wind howled across the lake, and again he heard it. Daniel. This time it wasn't far. It came from the water itself. He shone his flashlight across the lake's surface. The beam wavered through sheets of rain, and for just a second, he saw something. A shape standing at the edge of the dock. A woman. Still. Soaking wet. Her hair plastered to her face. He froze. "Claire!" The figure didn't move. Lightning flashed again, and she was gone. He ran to the dock, calling her name, slipping on the wet boards. The lake churned with rain, its surface alive with ripples and light. He swept the flashlight back and forth, shouting, "Claire! Is that you?" The water answered with another whisper, "Daniel." Beneath the thunder, then something splashed near the center of the lake. He caught a glimpse of a pale hand rising from the water, then sinking again. He didn't think. He just moved. He jumped into his boat, started the small motor, and pushed off into the storm. The rain came harder, each drop cold as needles. Lightning struck somewhere in the woods, and thunder rolled so deep it felt like the world was shaking. "Claire!" he shouted again, his voice lost to the storm. The boat rocked violently as a wave crashed over its side. Then came that whisper again. Closer now, around him, under him. It wasn't just one voice anymore. He heard dozens. Low, broken, murmuring beneath the thunder. Men, women, children. Their words tangled in the wind. Impossible to understand, but all of them calling to him. His flashlight beam hit something in the water ahead. Not a body, something larger. Round, shining. It was a face. White eyes stared up at him from beneath the surface, mouth open in a silent scream. He lurched back, nearly falling overboard. As the face drifted away into the dark, he realized then that the water was full of them. Faces, hundreds of them, just below the surface, flickering like reflections in lightning. Every time thunder rolled, their mouths moved, and the voices grew louder. "Daniel, join us!" Beneath the thunder, he tried to start the motor, but it sputtered and died. Panic clawed up his throat. He grabbed the oars and began rowing back toward the shore, but the storm wouldn't let him. The wind howled, spinning the boat in circles. Waves crashed harder, and through it all he heard one voice above the rest. "Claire's. You left me here, Daniel. Come home." He looked up and saw her standing on the water, a pale figure outlined by lightning. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, and her wet dress clung to her body like seaweed. She smiled. He couldn't breathe. "Claire, I couldn't save you." She took a step closer, her bare feet not sinking. "Then save me now." The storm roared louder, the lake boiling with ghostly light. The faces beneath the surface opened their mouths wider, their hands reaching up through the waves. "Claire, please," he gasped. She raised her hand toward him, and a bolt of lightning struck the water beside the boat. The flash blinded him. The shock threw him backward, and everything went black. When the sun rose the next morning, Willow Lake was calm again. The storm had vanished as quickly as it came. The local ranger found Daniel's boat drifting near the far shore. It was empty, except for his flashlight and a single wet footprint on the seat. They dragged the lake for days but never found a body. A week later, another storm rolled in. One of the rangers closing up the boathouse for the night swore he heard something over the thunder. A voice, soft, calling from the water. Daniel. He shined his light across the lake and saw ripples spreading outward from the center, like something had just gone under. Now, the people of Willow Lake say that when lightning touches the water, you can hear the dead whisper beneath the thunder. They say the voices belong to those who drowned, still reaching for the living. And if you hear your own name carried in the storm, whatever you do, don't answer, because once the thunder knows your name, it never forgets. The storm came earlier than anyone expected. The sky over Hollow Creek had been strange all day, gray, but not the usual kind. It looked heavy, like it was made of wet metal. The air felt thick and too warm for October. Even the trees were quiet. No wind, no birds. Just that waiting kind of silence that comes before something bad. Lena Foster stood at her bedroom window watching the horizon darken. Her house sat on the edge of town, right where the woods began. She loved storms until that night. Her mother called from downstairs, "Lena, shut your window before the rain comes in." Lena sighed, pulling it down halfway. She liked the smell of rain, the way thunder rolled through her chest. But this time, something about the storm made her uneasy. Maybe it was how the clouds seemed to twist, or the flashes of light that came without thunder, quick and white like camera flashes. She was about to turn away when it happened. A bolt of lightning split the sky, blinding her. The crack that followed shook the entire house. But what froze her wasn't the sound. It was the voice that came with it. It said her name. Lena. Soft, low, like someone whispering right beside her ear. She stumbled back, heart pounding. "Mom," she called, but her voice trembled. There was no answer, only rain slapping against the glass. She tried to laugh it off. Maybe she'd imagined it. Thunder could sound strange, echo through the woods, bounce off the hills. But when the next lightning came, the voice returned. Lena. This time it sounded clearer, closer. She slammed the window shut and yanked the curtains. Her hands were shaking so hard she dropped her phone trying to text her friend Riley. Before she could type more than, "Hey, storm's weird," the power flickered. Then went out. The house sank into darkness. "Mom," she shouted again. Still nothing. She grabbed her flashlight from the nightstand and opened her door. The hallway stretched ahead, quiet except for the rain hammering the roof. Halfway down the hall, she heard a low humming, like electricity crackling through the air. She followed it toward the stairs. The living room windows glowed faintly white every few seconds. Thunder rolled again, and with each flash, Lena swore she saw a shape, something tall, standing near the window. When she blinked, it was gone. Then, on the next flash, the lightning hit the big oak tree outside. There was a blast of sound so loud it made her ears ring. Sparks danced across the window pane. She stumbled back, her flashlight flickering. For a heartbeat, she saw something burned into her vision. A silhouette standing inside the lightning itself. And in that blinding second, the voice came again. "I see you." "Lena," she screamed, dropping the flashlight. Its beam rolled across the floor, lighting the empty living room. Empty, except for a wet footprint near the door. Her breath caught. Someone, or something, was inside. She backed toward the stairs, but a hand grabbed her ankle. Cold, wet. She kicked hard, the hand slipping away. She scrambled up the stairs 2 at a time, slamming her bedroom door and locking it. She pressed her ear to the door. Silence, then slow, dragging footsteps below. She could hear water dripping, and that low electric hum again. She turned to her window, thinking she could climb out and run to the neighbors, but the window was glowing faintly blue. Lightning crawled across the glass like veins of light searching for a way in, and then the voice whispered again. Softer this time, almost kind. "You shouldn't have looked at me." Lena's heart thudded so hard she could barely breathe. She looked around her room for something, anything to defend herself. She grabbed the metal lamp from her desk. Outside, the thunder rolled again, but this time it didn't fade. It stretched, longer, deeper, until it almost sounded like words. She listened. The thunder said her name again. Lena Foster. She covered her ears, shaking her head. Go away, leave me alone. The storm only grew louder. Lightning flashed again, and the light burned through her closed eyelids. When she dared to look, she saw her reflection in the window. But behind her reflection, another face stared back. Pale, eyes glowing white. Its mouth moved in perfect time with the thunder. It was saying her name. She threw the lamp at the window. The glass shattered and rain burst in. The power surged through the lamp's cord. Sparks flew, the room filled with blue-white light, and Lena screamed. Then, silence. When the storm finally passed, the next morning was calm. The air was cool and fresh, as if nothing strange had happened at all. Mrs. Foster called the police when she couldn't find Lena. Her bed was empty. The floor was wet with rainwater and scattered glass, and the tree outside was split clean in two. They searched the woods for 3 days. No trace. But when the local power crew came to fix the downed lines, one of the workers froze near the oak tree. The bark had a strange burn mark, like the outline of a hand pressed deep into the wood. Above it, carved by lightning itself, were 3 shaky words. I see you. That night, Hollow Creek had another storm. A smaller one, just rain and wind. But the family next door swore they heard something in the thunder. A girl's voice. It said her name again and again, echoing over the hills. Lena. Lena, Lena. Some say the lightning took her. Others say she became part of the storm, trapped inside it forever, her voice riding on thunder, calling for someone to answer. Now, whenever a storm rolls over Hollow Creek, locals shut their windows and whisper prayers. Because if you listen closely during the brightest flash of lightning, you might hear her too, a girl's voice whispering from the storm. And if it speaks your name, don't look outside. The old Crowley house stood at the edge of the valley, far from the nearest road. It was a long, narrow thing, its roof bowed with age, its windows like blind eyes. Nobody had lived there for 40 years, not since the Crowley family disappeared one stormy night in 1979. Locals said the house woke up whenever thunder rolled across the hills, that it listened, that it waited. Nina Bell didn't believe any of that. She was a photographer, and she loved old, forgotten places. When she heard about the Crowley house, she saw a chance to capture something dramatic, something that could make her portfolio stand out. So on a warm evening in late September, she parked her car at the end of the dirt path and hiked the rest of the way. Camera strapped around her neck, flashlight in hand. The air was still and heavy. The sky looked bruised. In the distance, she heard thunder. Perfect for atmosphere, she thought. The front door was swollen shut, but she managed to pry it open. The smell hit her first. Dust, wet wood, something faintly metallic. Inside, everything was covered in a thin gray film. Furniture sat where it had always been, frozen in time. A half-burned candle on the table. A child's shoe under the stairs. She set up her tripod, snapping pictures as lightning flashed outside. The light filled the house for an instant, bright, unnatural, then vanished, leaving deep shadows. Creepy, she whispered, smiling nervously. She worked for an hour, moving from room to room. Every creak of the floor made her flinch, but she kept going. She wanted one perfect shot. The living room at night, lit only by the storm. As she adjusted her lens, thunder rolled again, long and low. It seemed to vibrate through the walls. Then she heard something else, a faint tap, tap, tap. She froze. It came from upstairs. Probably rain, she muttered. But when she listened again, she realized it wasn't random. It was too slow, too steady, like footsteps. Nina turned off her flashlight, holding her breath. Silence. Then another soft creak, the sound of weight shifting on the floor above her. Hello? She called. Her voice sounded too small in the big, empty house. No answer. She tried to laugh it off, telling herself it was the wind. But when lightning flashed again, she thought she saw movement at the top of the stairs, a shadow darting away. Her skin prickled. Okay, she whispered. 5 more shots, then I'm done. She lifted her camera to take one last picture of the staircase. The flash went off, and when the light faded, the image burned into her mind. There was someone standing halfway up the stairs. A man, tall, head tilted to one side, eyes black as coal. Her camera slipped from her hands and hit the floor. When she looked up again, the stairs were empty. Nina grabbed her bag, fumbling for her flashlight. Her heart hammered so loudly she could barely hear the next rumble of thunder. She turned to leave, but the front door had swung shut. She yanked on it. It didn't budge. The knob was ice cold, slick with moisture. The storm outside howled louder, shaking the windows. Lightning flashed again, and this time she saw figures in every reflection. Pale shapes standing behind her, their faces pressed to the glass from inside. She stumbled backward, tripping over a broken chair. "This isn't happening," she whispered. Then she heard it whispering. Soft, low, coming from all around her. We waited for the storm. "You came back?" Her flashlight flickered. The air grew colder, heavy with static. On the wall beside her, something began to appear. Letters drawn in dripping water. "Welcome home." "No," she gasped, backing toward the stairs. But as thunder cracked again, the house moved. The floorboards buckled, groaning like the house itself was breathing. She stumbled up the staircase, desperate to find another way out. At the top, a narrow hallway stretched ahead, lined with closed doors. The whispering followed her, echoing through the walls. She tried the first door, locked. The second stuck. The third creaked open. It was a child's room. The wallpaper was peeling, the bed half collapsed. A single toy, a ragged stuffed bear, sat on the floor. Nina raised her flashlight. The bear's head turned toward her. She screamed, stumbling back. The door slammed shut behind her, trapping her inside. Thunder crashed overhead. The room flashed white, and for one terrible second she saw them, all of them. The Crowley family, a man, a woman, and 2 children standing around her in a circle, their faces pale and water-streaked. The father stepped forward, his voice crackling like static. "You shouldn't have come. The house remembers." She pressed against the wall, trembling. "Please, I didn't mean to. I was just taking pictures." The little girl tilted her head. "We took pictures too." Lightning flashed again. The air split with sound. The walls rippled like water. Nina felt something grab her wrist, cold, hard. She dropped her flashlight. In the last flicker of light, she saw her reflection in the cracked window. Only it wasn't her anymore. Her skin was pale, her eyes dark, and behind her the Crowleys were smiling. The storm swallowed the sound of her scream. 2 weeks later, hikers found her car abandoned at the edge of the path. Inside was her camera. The last photo on it showed the living room of the Crowley house. Beautiful, perfectly lit by lightning. And in the center of the picture, someone stood by the window. A young woman, camera in hand, her eyes empty, her mouth open in a silent cry. Locals say the Crowley house lights up every time a storm passes. Some swear they've seen a flicker of movement behind the windows, a new shadow among the old ones. They say the house isn't haunted. They say it's hungry. It waits for storms. It listens for footsteps. And when someone steps inside during the thunder, it finally breathes again. Rain had always calmed Mia. As a child, she'd sit by her window and count the seconds between lightning and thunder, pretending the sky was speaking to her. But after what happened that summer in Grayfield, she could never listen to rain the same way again. It began on a Thursday. The air felt heavy and wrong, like the world had stopped breathing. Mia was staying with her grandmother, Agnes, in the old house at the end of Willow Street. Agnes had lived there for 50 years, and she always said the house knew storms. That evening, thunder rumbled far away, slow and deep. Mia sat on the porch steps, watching the sky fade from gray to black. "It's coming," Grandma murmured, pulling her shawl tighter. "Best close the windows before the rain starts talking." Mia laughed. "Before the rain starts talking?" Agnes gave her a strange look. "You mock, child, but some storms carry more than water. Sometimes the sky remembers." Mia smiled politely, thinking it was just one of her grandmother's old sayings. By midnight, the storm hit. The first drops slapped the windows so hard they sounded like pebbles. The wind howled, and lightning flashed white across the ceiling. Mia lay in bed, unable to sleep, counting the seconds between thunderclaps. Then she heard it, something soft between the rumbles. A cry. She sat up, heart pounding. It wasn't the pipes or the wind. It was unmistakably human, a faint, distant scream carried by the rain. She turned on her lamp and listened. Another flash of lightning illuminated the window, and she saw water running down the glass. But the sound came again, clearer this time, right outside. "Help me." Mia froze. She whispered to herself, "It's just the wind." But deep down she knew it wasn't. The scream came again, louder, raw with pain. "Please, let me in." Mia ran to the window and pulled back the curtain. Through the rain she saw a figure standing at the edge of the yard. A woman, drenched, hair plastered to her face. "Are you hurt?" Mia called through the glass. The woman didn't answer. She just stood there, shaking. Lightning flashed again, and Mia saw that her eyes were wide and white, completely blank. Then the woman opened her mouth, and instead of words, a sound like thunder came out. Mia stumbled backward, slamming the curtain shut. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone, but the signal was dead. The rain was coming harder now, pounding the roof like fists. She ran to her grandmother's room. "Grandma, there's someone outside. She's hurt." Agnes sat up slowly, her face pale. "You saw her?" "Yes. She's in the yard," she screamed. Agnes swung her legs out of bed, grabbing Mia's wrist. Her grip was strong, cold. "Listen to me. Don't open that door. Whatever you do, don't speak to her again." Mia swallowed hard. "But she needs help." Her grandmother shook her head. "No, that's not a woman. That's what the storm carries. The storm remembers who's gone." Thunder crashed above them, making the walls shudder. Then came more voices. Not just one, dozens. Screams and cries weaving through the sound of rain, echoing from every direction. Mia covered her ears. "What is that?" Agnes whispered. The rain turned to screams again. "Just like before." "Before?" Mia asked, but her grandmother didn't answer. She just stared toward the window, her eyes wet with fear. Lightning flashed, and for a split second the entire room glowed. In that flash, Mia saw faces in the rain, pressed against the glass, mouths open in silent terror. When the darkness returned, the faces were gone, but their screams continued. The floorboards creaked downstairs. Mia froze. "Grandma, did you hear that?" Agnes nodded slowly. "They're inside now." Before Mia could speak, something slammed against the front door. Once, twice, then again, bang, bang, bang. "Let us in." Voices cried, blending with the storm. "It's cold. It's dark, please." Mia clutched her grandmother's arm. "We have to call someone." "No one can hear us," Agnes whispered. "Not when the rain is screaming." The banging grew louder. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Silence. Only the soft patter of rain remained. Mia took a shaky breath. "It's over," she whispered. But it wasn't. The door creaked open on its own. Cold air rushed through the hall. The candle on the dresser flickered out, plunging them into darkness. Lightning flashed again, and in that instant, Mia saw wet footprints leading from the doorway toward the stairs. The screaming returned, but this time, it wasn't outside. It was inside the house, dozens of voices wailing in agony circling them. Mia grabbed her grandmother's hand and backed toward the corner. "Grandma, what do we do?" Agnes was whispering something, an old prayer, but her voice was shaking. The air grew colder and the walls seemed to breathe, expanding and shrinking with each thunderclap. Then, from the shadows at the top of the stairs, a figure stepped into view. The same woman from the yard. Her face was pale, eyes black now, water streaming from her mouth. She raised one trembling finger and pointed at Mia. "You hurt us," she hissed. "Now you belong to the storm." The lights flickered, the room blinding white for a heartbeat. The screams rose higher, filling every corner of the house, until they weren't voices anymore. They were the rain itself. Mia screamed as the woman reached out, and the world went white. The next morning, the storm was gone. Neighbors found the front door of the old house wide open. Everything was soaked, the floors, the walls, the beds. But there was no sign of Mia or her grandmother, only puddles that shimmered faintly in the light, as if still alive. And when the next rain came to Grayfield, the people who lived nearby swore the sound was different. The rain didn't fall in drops. It fell in voices, soft at first, then louder, screams desperate, echoing through the night, and sometimes, between the thunderclaps, you could hear a girl crying out for help, calling a name again and again. "Grandma, Grandma?" No one answers. Because in Greyfield, when the rain turns to screams, the living don't speak back. The last storm came to Ashmore without warning. The morning had been calm, too calm. The air smelled metallic, and the clouds hung low, thick and bruised. By dusk, the entire sky flickered with strange, silent lightning. There was no thunder, no rain, just light flashing behind the clouds like something alive was moving inside them. Ben Rowe watched from his front porch, uneasy. The storm wasn't normal. He could feel it. The light didn't fade between flashes. It grew, pulsing in slow, rhythmic bursts, almost like breathing. His phone buzzed. It was a message from his sister, Mara. "Stay inside tonight. Don't look at the sky when it flashes." He frowned. "Why not?" he replied. No answer. Just the blinking dots. Then nothing. Ben sighed and went back inside. He told himself it was just another power warning or some weird online rumor. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that this storm was watching him. The first thunder came around 9. It didn't roll or crack. It screamed. A high, sharp sound that rattled the windows and made his bones ache. Then the lights went out. The only glow came from outside. The endless, stuttering flashes that turned the world silver and black over and over again. Ben grabbed a flashlight and peered through the blinds. His yard looked like a photograph repeating itself. Every flash froze it again. The trees, the swing, the gravel path. But on the third flash, something was different. There was someone standing by the gate. He blinked hard, waiting for the next flash. When it came, the figure was closer. Tall, thin, facing the house. He stepped back from the window, heart hammering. "Nope," he whispered. "Not tonight." He turned away, but the flashes came faster now. Every second. Like a strobe light. Each burst of brightness lit up the hallway, the kitchen, the living room. And in each one, he saw the figure move closer. By the fifth flash, it was at the porch steps. He could see it clearly now. A man, or what looked like one. His clothes were torn and dripping with something that wasn't rain. His face was pale, eyes black, skin cracked like old lightning scars. Ben stumbled backward, nearly dropping the flashlight. The next flash came, brighter than ever, and for a heartbeat, the entire house lit up like day. He saw more of them, dozens, standing all along the street, motionless, staring toward his house. Then, darkness. He couldn't breathe. The silence pressed on his ears and the flashlight flickered weakly. He rushed to grab his phone, but the screen stayed black. Dead. The next flash came, and this time, they were inside. He saw their shapes in the living room, in the doorway, behind the couch. When the light vanished again, the darkness swallowed them whole. "Stop," he whispered. "Please stop." The thunder answered with a scream. He turned and ran upstairs, slamming his bedroom door. He barricaded it with the dresser, breathing hard. Lightning still flared through the curtains, every few seconds showing more of the room. His desk, his bed, the mirror, then nothing. He sat with his back to the door, whispering to himself, "It's just light, just light, just flash." In the mirror across the room, a figure stood behind him. Ben spun around. Nothing there. Flash, closer now. A pale face reflected beside his own. He threw a blanket over the mirror, trembling. "Not real," he whispered. Not real. He could feel the air thickening, charged with static. The room smelled like ozone and burning dust. The next flash exploded across the window, and for a split second the light wasn't outside. It was inside the room. A blinding white filled everything, and a voice whispered through it, sharp and electric. "You saw us." He clutched his head, the light burning through his eyes. "What do you want?" "The last flash," the voice said. "The one that opened the way." He didn't understand, but the house did. It began to hum, deep and low, as if the walls themselves were alive. The window glass trembled. Each new lightning burst shook the room harder, until the dresser began to slide across the floor. He grabbed it, trying to hold it steady. But another flash hit, and for a split second, the walls were gone. He saw the sky, Endless black full of twisting light, and in the center of that storm, faces, thousands of them, all wide-eyed, screaming silently. The light faded, the room returned, but Ben wasn't alone anymore. A figure stood in the corner, the man from the yard. "Who are you?" Ben whispered. The man smiled, a crack spreading across his pale face like lightning on glass. "We are the storm. And now, you are too." The final flash came, so bright it turned everything to white. The thunder followed like a bomb going off. And then, silence. The next morning, Ashmore was quiet. Too quiet. Every house on Ben's street stood open, lights off, food on tables, TVs frozen mid-broadcast. But there wasn't a single person anywhere. The news said it was mass hysteria or chemical lightning. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just the smell of ozone and faint burn marks on the walls. Mara Rowe came looking for her brother 2 days later. His phone lay on the porch, screen cracked. The last text he'd typed but never sent said, "The light won't stop flashing." That night, Mara stayed at a motel on the edge of town. Around midnight, she woke to silence. Too deep, too perfect. Then, outside her window, a single flash lit up the world. In that instant, she saw hundreds of faces staring back from the dark, pale, expressionless, frozen mid-scream. When the darkness returned, they were gone. But in the space between lightning and thunder, she heard a voice, faint, distant, familiar. "Mara. It's me." It was Ben. And when the next flash came, his face appeared in the glass beside hers, smiling with eyes that glowed white. Now, when storms roll across Ashmore, there's always one flash that lasts too long, just before the lights go out. Locals call it the last flash before darkness, because that's the moment when the storm remembers your face and decides to keep it.